Welcome back to another episode of Sound Pals Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review, and today I'll be reviewing the movie The Quick and the Dead, movie from 1995. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. A female gunfighter returns to a frontier town where a dueling tournament is being held, which she enters in an effort to avenge her father's death. So let's begin with my first pro. We got some big names in this movie from the time, and some that were not well known at that time. We have Sharon Stone, who was also a producer in the film and had a say on casting Russell Crowe. And with that, we have Russell Crowe. We also have Gene Hackman, Leonardo DiCaprio, Keith David, Tobin Bell, Mark Boone Jr., and Gary Sinise. Having all of these names and rewatching the movie makes me feel like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme pointing at the TV every single time I see someone that I recognize on the screen. It feels good to see each and every one playing a different role from what I'm usually known them from. I even catch myself calling them by their other characters' names, like, oh look, it's Lieutenant Dan, or look, it's Jigsaw, and so on. Also, it was great seeing Russell Crowe in a film before Gladiator, and in this one, which was filmed after Virtuosity but released the same year. You can tell that he did a better job here than in the other film. Or could it have been the director that made a difference? I don't know. Also, we could have had Bruce Campbell in the film, but his parts were cut out, and that is kind of sad. Next pro, the gunfights were pretty nice, and the gunplay was also nice. It really showed that the actors were taught how to handle guns before their actual scenes. Also, a pro to the person in charge for picking the guns, because it shows they did their research and used period weapons and none of the sneaky Hollywood tricks by putting other guns that were not available at the time. But there is a con, and I will talk about it later. The director made sure that every gunfight was different so that it stands out, or making the fight seem like they've seen it before. Next pro, the story and how it was filmed by Sam Raimi. It gave me a feeling that I've seen this style before, but when I was looking into it, I learned that he went out of his way to pay homage to Sergio Leone and his style from his spaghetti westerns. And it does show in this film, and I kind of like that. Next pro, the location and costume they used for this film. Maybe some won't care, but this was filmed at the old Tucson studio before the fire that pretty much destroyed most of the set. So this movie was released in 1995, and in April of that year, the fire took place. So some of the old props and costumes and memorabilia that were shot in other shows and movies were lost in that fire, and they cannot be replaced. But the studio was eventually rebuilt, but we did lose some of the memorable items that were lost in the fire. So when watching this film, remember, this is the set used in other Western movies that Hollywood had filmed, and this film was the last one to be filmed on that original studio. Now on to my cons. The final gunfight. I know that I said the gunplay and guns were kept authentic to the time period, but the final gunfight had an issue, and that was when Sharon Stone shot Gene Hackman's character. He had a hole in him that let the light through, and thus is how the audience learned that he had been shot. Then he wanted to keep on fighting, and Sharon Stone shot him in the head and flipped him 360 backwards, and that was supposed to be the amazing power of that one bullet. Okay, this is above what I can tolerate in films. I know it's the final showdown, but come on, this made the film laughable, and it just lowered itself. Bullets from revolvers don't have that kind of power to flip a person over, nor a small caliber bullet will leave an opening in the wound to let light through. If they would have had him touch his stomach and then looked at his hand covered with blood, it would have gotten the same reaction. And also for the final headshot, what if they would have had him just look down and then fall, and when the doctor goes up to see if he's still alive and turns him over, we see blood in his forehead? That would still get the point across. There are also some other gunfights and gunshots that are unrealistic, but this took the cake, and I'm willing to let the other slide just to talk bad about this one scene. Next con, the story behind Sharon Stone's character, Ellen. It was slowly revealed to the audience through flashbacks and nightmares that she had. And also, Russell Crowe's character, Court, had the same issue. His story was told by Gene Hackman's character, Herod. One way would have been for each character to tell their story, but that would have been the easy way out. Instead, why not open the film a few years earlier with Ellen as a child and then tell her story, and then Court leaving the gang? If that takes away from the reveal at the end, then just open the movie with Court's story and then flash to the present where he is tied and dragged into town. As for Ellen, it would be up to Doc Wallace to tell her story and how Gene Hackman's character made her shoot her own father and then burn his body, scarring her for life and making her run in fear, but eventually try to seek revenge. Or just have the conversation between Ellen and Doc Wallace in the cemetery earlier in the film. It would have been the same effect as the flashback and nightmares, but leave the nightmares in, but do not show the flashbacks of the dreams that she had. This would actually add more personality to her character, and we see how she suffers every night remembering what happened. Last con, I would have to say the length of the film is a bit long. I would have liked it if it was around 90 minutes. Short and simple, easy to follow, get in, get out, since this movie revolves mostly around the tournament. And secondly, the backstories of the characters. Yes, Court and Ellen's past are important, but that can be said in a small conversation. Now, seeing the townspeople getting a hired gun is interesting, so why not add more of that? Versus Ellen passing by the open door and slightly opening it so she can hear in on what they were doing, just to simply have the door close on her. One would expect the hired gun to have killed her for prying in and eavesdropping on a conversation. So my final grade for the movie is going to be a 6.5 out of 10. Interesting gunfights and the costumes, especially Sharon Stone's leather jacket, which was authentic and over 100 years old. So having stuff like this is quite interesting in a film like this. And also the gun models that were being used were from that time period, but replicas. The cast was great. They added characters that kept the story interesting, especially from the gunfight point of view. I can actually see this as a short comic book series where the characters would lend themselves well to the story. As for cons, the gunfight at the end with the headshot flipping the person over was too much for me. There were others, but this took the cake and I couldn't let it go. So that does it for this review of The Quick and the Dead, movie from 1995. Please join us next time where we're going to review Fight Club.
I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. With insomnia, nothing's real. Everything's far away. Everything's a copy of a copy.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below. And like always, keep watching movies.